I for a long time held the belief that while words so often divide us, objects can draw people of different faiths together. That was why we held the exhibition Pilgrimage, the Sacred Journey in the Ashmolean Museum in 2006. And in this afternoon's talk, I want to investigate a wide selection of works of art and architecture, from objects in European cathedral treasuries to Crusader castles, in order to try and throw light on the way two particular faith communities, those of Christianity and Islam, lived alongside each other in medieval times. The Islamic Caliphate came into being through the military conquest by the Arabs of the Sasanian Persian Empire in the east and the Byzantine Empire in the west. It's therefore appropriate to begin with conquest and to see what sort of results conquest brought. The most important art form for any conqueror is architecture, and an outstanding example on the Muslim side is the Umayyad Mosque in Damascus. Here at the time of the Muslim conquest of Syria, the first century Roman temenos, or pagan enclosure, was occupied by the Church of St. John, and the temenos is the big wall that runs right round the great mosque in Damascus. It was occupied by the Church of St. John. That's great, thank you. Although left intact at the time of the Arab conquest, when the temenos was shared between the Christians and the new Muslim occupiers, the church was compulsorily purchased and then destroyed by the Caliph Walid I, who between 706 and 714-15, i.e. some 70 years after the conquest, erected the great mosque along the south side of the temenos. One faith has taken over the space of another to demonstrate its superiority. A comparable example on the Christian side is provided by the Cathedral of Cordova. Cordova was captured from the Muslims by King Ferdinand III of Castile in 1236. The great mosque was initially left as the Christian army found it, but was consecrated, dedicated to the Virgin Mary, and from then on used as a place of Christian worship. King Alfonso X, who ruled between 1252 and 1284, however, oversaw the construction of two chapels within the structure of the mosque, and the kings who followed added further Christian features. It was not, however, until nearly 300 years after the Reconquest, in the reign of Charles V, who reigned between 1516 and 1568, that the nave and Baroque choir, which make up the heart of the present cathedral, were constructed. In this case, the Christian look came long after the Christian reconquest and consecration of the building. Every situation would inevitably be slightly different. Another important element in conquest is the subsequent issue of a conqueror's coinage. The Arabs, when they conquered Byzantium and the Sasanian Empire in the 7th century, brought with them no coinage. So first they adopted the Byzantine solidus, and you can see an example on the left-hand side of the slide, a solidus of Heraclius from the early 7th century. Then they adapted it, top right, by the removal of the offensive Christian elements like the crossbar of the cross. Then they attempted to Islamicize it further by producing a coin with a standing caliph in the middle on the right, before finally producing a new coinage uniquely theirs, bearing only Quranic or regal inscriptions in Arabic script, bottom right. Another element in any wars of conquest was booty. One of the most famous examples on the Christian side is the Griffin of Pisa. This is almost certainly booty brought back after one of the Pisan victories against the Muslims of North Africa, Sicily, or the Balearic Islands in the 11th or 12th century, the most likely being the Pisan conquest of the Balearic Islands in 1114. This victory is mentioned at length in the sources and also on the facade of the cathedral, And the position of the griffin, right at the top, would have emphasized its importance as a symbol of Pisan conquests and naval power. It incidentally has a mechanism inside when the wind blows through it, or if you can do it with artificial bellows, that makes it produce a roaring sound. And it looks as though it once decorated or was a support for a throne, and there's a lion which also survives from northern Africa or from Spain, which also has this mechanism inside. So if you were the caliph or a ruler sitting on your throne, you could have roaring lions and griffins on either side to wake up visiting ambassadors and make them realize how important you were. On the Muslim side, for booty, Muslim dislike for Christianity often focused on church bells. And in the wars conducted in Spain, church bells were regularly dismantled and often reused in mosques as trophies of war. And here on the screen is an early 14th century example which hangs in the Karawin Mosque in Fez in Morocco. And you should be able to see on the right here that there's a bell in the center, and then vertical bronze sheets have been added to it and modern lamp fittings, but they would have had candle fittings all the way up to give out light. But the bell is the center of this contraption. Conquest sometimes had unexpected results for art and material culture. A very good example is provided by the Christian reconquest of Spain, in particular of the Muslim king of Granada. One of the finest products of the city of Malaga was luster pottery. Indeed, so famous was it that it reached the court of Edward I of England. In 1289, Queen Eleanor of Castile, Edward I's wife, is recorded as importing from Malaga, through the port of Sandwich, 42 bowls, 10 dishes, and 4 earthenware jars of foreign colour, undoubtedly referring to lustre. As the Christian reconquest proceeded, Muslim craftsmen began working for Christian patrons, producing spectacularly grand lustreware dishes for display in the mansions of the aristocracy. Many survive with coats of arms of the Christian rulers of Spain, as, for example, this piece with the arms of Castile, top right, and many are very specifically Christian, as this piece in the middle, with the Latin phrase Ave Maria gratia plena, Hail Mary, full of grace. But others continued to use designs drawn from their Muslim origins. The so-called Al-Afia pattern, which is visible on the top left, based on the Arabic word for blessing or good fortune, or another pattern, bottom left, based on the form of the name of God, Allah, in Arabic. Soon the technology for lustre reached Italy, where it formed the basis of maiolica, the great decorative ceramic tradition of Renaissance Italy. Thus, the Christian reconquest was not all disaster for the Muslim craftsmen of Andalusia, for new markets opened up exciting new horizons. Conquest was also a key component in the strategy of one Muslim ruler, and with him I shall end this talk, Mehmed the Conqueror, who captured Constantinople and finally destroyed the Byzantine Empire in 1453. For virtually all the examples I've illustrated so far have been works of art from the Islamic world being exported to Christian Europe, and virtually nothing, apart from bells as booty, going the other way. This couldn't have been the case, but the problem lies in the commodities shipped across the Mediterranean. For from Europe, the primary goods were all organic: cloth, olive oil, soap, honey, and so on. Shipwrecks with these commodities on board leave no trace, except the boat itself, and in land-based excavations only tiny quantities of textiles can be expected to survive. Mehmed the Conqueror breaks all the rules and goes against all the grains. From a school book, which survives in Topkapi, it is clear that Mehmed as a boy was interested in European methods of drawing, but his passion for things Western becomes much clearer once he became Sultan. He collected Greek manuscripts, including, for example, a copy of the Iliad. He collected sacred Byzantine relics and secular marbles. He asked the Venetians to supply a master builder, and the Florentines for intarsia artists and other craftsmen. And from Venice again he sought glass makers and makers of chiming clocks. Most famously, he invited from Renaissance Italy sculptors and bronze founders, an invitation which led Costanza da Ferrara to strike this bronze medal round about 1478. Bertoldo di Giovanni to strike another medal round about 1480, while Gentile Bellini journeyed to Istanbul in 1479 to 80 to strike yet another medal of the Sultan and to paint portraits of the Sultan and his favourites. Mehmed, however, was definitely unusual. Conquerors are usually after fame and power. Merchants are in it for money. Pilgrims want to take tourist stuff home. Perhaps the only real interaction was between the members of the different religious communities who lived side by side, sharing a common visual culture and working in the same ateliers, making and decorating goods for people of both communities. And these were the artists or craftsmen who, when patronage offered, be it that of a Muslim sultan or a crusader king, were willing to lay aside religious differences to work for a common goal.